how science, PBMs, and access to care are affecting 84 million Americans. It's hard to believe, but nearly a third of our population is living with a skin condition. So we are here today talking with legislators about some of the challenges that we're facing. And first of all, just want to say thank you to those who are serving in our nation to improve and support the lives of Americans. Thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for taking time to spend with us to learn more about the challenges that people are facing. So, before we get started, my name is Kelly Barta. I am the Executive Director of the Coalition of Skin Diseases. I'm a skin patient myself, and I'll be sharing a little bit of my story further in the program. But before that, I would like to introduce our board chair and president, Brinley Brooks, and she is going to be speaking to us a little bit about the background of the coalition so you know who we are. So Brinley, in addition to her role with the CSD, is the founder and the CEO of HS Connect, a patient advocacy organization supporting those living with hidradenitis suppurativa, whose mission is to improve the lives of those affected by HS worldwide and empowering the community through education, advocacy, and support, connecting with them with resources and collaborating with medical experts to advance HS research and care. And not only does Brinley live with us, HS, but both her biological and stepdaughter do also. Her life in advocacy began after deciding to undergo a wide excision surgery and a desire for her daughters not to carry the same weight and shame of their HS in silence like she did for 27 years. Through her work with the CSD, she's learned that so many of us walk the same journey no matter our disease, and she is a champion for the 84 million living with skin disease. She's got a great group here with HS who are here talking with their legislators, so I just want to introduce you to Brinley, and come on up.
Thank you guys so much for being here. As Kelly said, I really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their lives or their day today if you're here just for this hour with us. Yes, I see my skin check in the back right there, Scarlett. So if you didn't know, we are doing skin checks today as well. So if you're interested in having that done, please do that today while we're here, courtesy of the DNA Dermatology Nurses Association. So as Kelly said, I am a patient living with HS. I have had HS for 36 years. My stepdaughter, who's here today, also has HS. So does my bio daughter. So we are, no strangers to this whole medical system thing. So just to give a little bit of background on the CSD and oops, let me move slides. Or are they moving? That is way too big of a picture of me, y'all. I apologize for that. Thank you. No problem. So why we exist. The efforts of the CSD aim to ensure that all Americans living with skin disease or trauma receive the care that they deserve to live healthy and productive lives. And I think the most important piece of that is the healthy and productive lives piece. Because everyone can live a life, but is it a healthy life and a productive life? Because that's what matters to us. And our mission is to improve the lives of all people living with dermatologic disease by uniting patient advocacy organizations and stakeholders in the common goals of advocacy, education, and awareness. So as all of you know, for those of us who are here today, advocacy, education, and awareness are the pillars of most of our nonprofit organizations that make up the Coalition of Skin Diseases. So the ways we accomplish this are by fostering education and awareness in skin disease and skin disorders, advocating, as we are here today, and on a smaller platform as well, just amongst our own orgs, for access to appropriate and quality health care and treatment. Again, so important for the 84 million people living with skin disease that we are here reporting on behalf of. We also contribute to the burden and related of skin disease by research and strengthening dermatologic patient advocacy organizations like us through the sharing of resources. And the coalition is made up of about 30 members, all different skin disease. And like Kelly said in my bio and my intro, I think the most important thing that I, as a person and the founder of an organization, have understood through this journey with the CSD is that we all with skin disease share a very, very common journey. It just insert different skin disease here. Most of us carry the burden of shame and guilt blame, all of those things seem to be common factors that all of us share. So it's nice to be amongst other people who feel that same way and know that even more than not being alone on your personal journey with your personal disease, but as skin disease patients, we are all on the same, the same platform and here to talk about the same exact things that make huge differences in all of our lives. So, and that's it for me. Thank you guys again so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
And welcome, Ryan. I just saw you come in. Ryan helped us get in the security. We were having trouble. So it was just serendipitous. It's like, okay, you need to come for our briefing today on skin disease because nearly a third of people are living with this. It's a very important topic. So thank you for being here. I failed to mention too, you saw the slide before Brinley's Representative John Joyce sponsored this room for us today, so made it possible for us to actually have this meeting. His office has been absolutely amazing with all of the millions of details that go into running something like this. So we appreciate him. He serves the 13th district in Pennsylvania. He's the one dermatologist on the Hill. So it's pretty cool to be partnered with him and work with him for skin disease patients. So next up, I would like to just talk a little bit about, and I need my readers because I'm getting older. So as the end user and the beneficiary of the healthcare system, scientific research, and the products created by pharmaceutical companies, it is the job of patient advocates and patient organizations to bring forward their story and the experiences of ourselves and those we represent to help work toward better health outcomes, to expose harms, articulate needs, and to engage where decisions are being made. So you've all heard that term, nothing about us without us, right? And so for a long time, we've had these different sectors working very hard in research, in science, in treatments, in medicine. But if we're not connected, we're not doing the end user a real service. So there's a trend toward that. It's pretty cool to see patients getting involved. I feel like the patient community in general has been this sleeping giant. We haven't had treatments for a really long time. A lot of the chronic illnesses like psoriasis, eczema, some of these things, it's like, oh, that's cosmetic. It's just a rash. And I remember growing up thinking, why isn't there more being done about this? So the fact is now that new treatments are on the horizon, it's like people's hope is waking up back again. They want to be involved in the process. They want to see how they can contribute. So it's a really cool time to be in the dermatology space and to connect with others. It's wonderful to be connected with NIAMS and NIH, and we have some of those representatives in the room, so thanks for being here. And doctors, you'll hear from those, and researchers today, so it's pretty amazing. But to start off, we want to set the stage. It's all about the people living with skin disease. It's all about the patient. And so we're going to have several of us tell you a bit about our stories and how skin disease has impacted our lives. I am stepping in for Joelle Crawford. She was a dynamite woman, but she got sick, so she had to cancel. So you get to hear a little bit of my story today. But first, I'm going to introduce Turner Young, and I'm going to tell you just a tiny bit about him before he comes up. So Turner is a 16-year-old sophomore in high school. He's lived with psoriasis since he's 5 years old. And in the last 11 years, he's grown up with psoriasis and has experienced the physical and emotional effects of having a skin condition. Recently, Turner has turned his attention to advocacy, where he's partnered with Made a Masterpiece, the National Psoriasis Foundation, and the Coalition of Skin Diseases to share his story and the story of all those affected by skin disease. So come on up, Turner.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Turner. You've already heard all that stuff about me. Yeah, my first clear memory of having psoriasis was back when I was 5. Then I scratched off a little piece of psoriasis off the top of my head. It was about the size of a dime, and I didn't know what it was, and because I was 5, I didn't say anything about it. But overnight, 4 years later, basically my entire body was consumed with psoriasis. I had scales basically everywhere, and this happened to me practically overnight. We had seen no progression. This is just what happened, and there was no way that I could hide it. And so we talked to my pediatrician. We asked her what we could do, and she handed me a tiny bottle of steroid cream. about this big. And when you're covered entirely with psoriasis, there's nothing you can do with that. It's both uncomfortable, it's just irritating because there's nothing you can do. And so we went on the search for another pediatric dermatologist. And surprisingly, in Houston, a place well known for its medical field, that was incredibly hard to do. And over time, we were able to find Dr. Bree, my dermatologist, and she put me on methotrexate. Methotrexate is a non-FDA approved drug which is used for cancer treatment. And as a minor, it was my only option. There was no medication available at that time, so it was what I had to take. And it's worked very slowly. And so when I got to school, I still had just scales of psoriasis covering me, and I had so many people asking me questions day in and day out, wondering what I had. I had people genuinely curious about what I had, and I had other people back away from me because they thought what I had was contagious. To be clear, psoriasis is not contagious, but it was just the endless cycle of questions that just made me lose hope that I could conquer this disease and that there would be no cure to it. But over time, luckily, these people had their questions answered as they knew more about my condition, and as methotrexate slowly worked. And so my psoriasis went to remission, and I went off the drug as fast as I could. Methotrexate, a reason why it's difficult to put a 9-year-old on that is because it can cause liver damage. And so we had to get me off of that as quickly as possible. And luckily, I was safe from the medication, but there, that meant that there'd be no long-term solution for my condition. And today, I now I've moved on to a different drug. My psoriasis came back about a year or two ago, and I couldn't get back on methotrexate because we knew that didn't work. We knew there was basically be no solution. So I took a new biologic injection called Stelara, and that has helped me and has helped my psoriasis go into remission. But even today, I still deal with many medical problems. It took me 6 months recently to get this biologic just because of insurance and the step therapy, all these different bureaucratic systems, basically, that keep me from getting what I need to thrive. And so this story is just one of 84 million. Many have experienced this. Many are just annoyed by the system, even because not only is it annoying, but it can cause all of us, harm. And so that is why I'm here today, to point out just the flaws in the system and asking all of you to join us in making sure that we can change the system and make people aware of what we truly have. Thank you.
Well, I'm so happy to announce that Representative John Joyce is here in the room, and he's going to give us a few remarks. If you would like to come forward, Representative Joyce has represented Pennsylvania's 13th congressional district in the U.S. House of Representatives since January 2019. He serves as vice chair of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce and as co-chair of the House GOP Doctors Caucus. Since arriving on Capitol Hill, Congressman Joyce has prioritized and championed legislation and initiatives focusing on delivering affordable, quality health care in rural communities, lowering energy prices, and expanding access to high-speed internet across South Central Pennsylvania. We want to say thank you so much.
And did you tell Turner what I did for 25 years?
You're a dermatologist. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving remarks.
Turner, I'm glad I was able to hear the end of your presentation. I wasn't here at the beginning of your presentation, but because of psoriasis, because of psoriatic arthritis, because of individuals with eczema, individuals with vitiligo, individuals with hidradenitis suppurativa, the diseases that I spent more than 2 decades of my life taking care of. That's one of the reasons that I'm here today in Congress, because how you eloquently stated that for this group, and I applaud you for your courage to be able to address those issues, but that's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm the only dermatologist in Congress. And what I would see on an average day and hear from patients is exactly what Turner articulated to each and every one of you here today, of how important that access to care is, how important it is when individuals struggle to not receive the therapies that they want, that they deserve. Turner, the year that I graduated from medical school was 1983. That was the year, I know that's a long time ago. He raised his eyebrows for those who didn't see. That was the year that President Ronald Reagan signed into law the Orphan Drug Act. That allowed innovation to continue to occur, but not enough of that has occurred so far. And unfortunately, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there is a more stifling of innovation that is occurring in American medicine today. So while I practiced, while the Orphan Drug Act allowed me to have more tools in my tool belt, allowed me to have the innovation to see advances for many dermatologic and connective tissue diseases, it has not been enough. Let me say that again. We need to resource better. We need to better access. We need to better have the ability to address what you face each and every day of your life, what so many of you face, when so many of the advocacy groups that you represent here today. The Orphan Cures Act is a piece of legislation that I have sponsored, which is a bipartisan piece of legislation that allows the pharmaceutical companies to extend what they have for a very limited time to keep this development occurring. And it's a process that unfortunately the Inflation Reduction Act narrowed the ability for companies. So let's say they find a rare disease, and you understand that as individuals who address in the Skin Coalition that most of the diseases, not all, but that most of the diseases that you are addressing as a group are rare diseases. So if you find a cure for something, you're going to wait till you find the largest application for that, because you're going to be restricted. If you initiate and release that drug, you're going to be restricted subsequently on how you're allowed to garner that research and development return on that. These are businesses. Pharmaceutical companies are businesses, and they have to be able to capture those resources back, and they have to be able to continue that research and development. I know that many of you represent skin cancer coalitions as well, and I know how important that is. It was important for me as I continued to treat patients throughout the years. Just 10 years ago, if someone presented with metastatic melanoma, it was often a trip to the dermatologist. We would do an excision. We would palpate them, see if they had any nodes, any swelling, and they would be sent to a surgeon for further evaluation. And then it was a trial of medicines. But in very short order, if it truly was metastatic melanoma, it was an advancement to a consultation with hospice care. But that has changed. We have the opportunity with immunologics. Immunologics, very similar to what you were talking about, that are utilized to treat psoriasis. We have more tools in our tool belt because of the innovation of American medicine. And we need to allow that to continue to evolve and allow that to continue to occur and allow patients to have that access. I think that's what's so important about American medicine, that we are the innovators. And to see those advances continue to occur are so important. Case in point, Jimmy Carter, who just passed away, President Jimmy Carter, at the age of 100, was diagnosed probably about 16 years before his death with metastatic melanoma. And there were pictures in the New York Times and many other publications showing the metastatic disease that he had to his brain and to his other organs. But because of advancements in American medicine, he was able to beat metastatic melanoma and continue to teach Sunday school and continue to work for Habitat for Humanity, continue to thrive. That's what we want all Americans to be able to have. But that's what our expectation is. That drove me to run for Congress. So when I ran for Congress, I was one of 8 individuals who stepped up to run for Congress. And I was the last person to jump in. And the reason I ran for Congress is none of the individuals who were running in my area in South Central Pennsylvania, none of them were addressing healthcare. So I had gone to one of the symposiums, one of the forums that they had, I raised my hand, asked a question. What are your top priorities? How many of them do you think answered healthcare or medicines were a top priority? Go ahead, give me an answer. How many answered that? 0. So I went back a week later and said, I'm a physician. I practice in this district. Where is healthcare on your list of what you want to go to Washington to be able to do? None of them gave a satisfactory answer. So in short order, I made a decision that I was going to run, and I ran on healthcare. So the other candidates, well, they kind of pat me on the back because I'd never run for office before in my life. Now, that's not exactly true. In 6th grade, I ran for student council president. I'm from Pennsylvania. I passed out Hershey Kisses, and I won. But that was a very long, long time ago. But to be able to address healthcare, they'd say I was a single-focused candidate. I was a single-issue candidate. They wrote the op-eds. He seems like a nice guy, but he's a single-issue candidate. So I would come in and talk to groups like this. I'd say, who doesn't have issues with healthcare? Who feels that they have access to all the prescriptions they need? Who feels that they see the doctors that they want to see in a timely fashion? Because if that's you, then you can go ahead and leave, because I'm not the candidate for you. But if you think that there is need in Washington to be able to address healthcare issues, then stick around. Listen to what I want to bring to that equation. So now I'm the vice chairman of Energy and Commerce, where healthcare, a lot of those policies are developed and occur. I'm also the co-chair of the GOP Doctors Caucus, where we address healthcare issues. I am a candidate and I am a representative who addresses healthcare issues. And I serve on Energy and Commerce, so I also address energy issues. I address broadband issues. But those issues all pivot back to how important access is to healthcare. And they pivot back to how important that American patients, the groups that you represent, expect that innovation to be able to occur. And that's what I came to Washington to be able to continue to advocate for. Your issues are my issues. Your concerns are what I came to Washington to be able to better address. And I'll be honest with you, we haven't succeeded in that. We have made incremental increases, allowing physicians to receive in the current budget reconciliation bill, allowing physicians to have a medical index to be able to increase Medicare reimbursement. Important to keep doctors compensated so that when you show up at their door, that they're going to accept your insurance. That's a basic principle of what we need to be able to do in America. You should not get the, I'm sorry, we don't accept your insurance. I'm not on your panel. You need to have that access. You need to have that ability to have your issues addressed. And on both sides of the aisle, there are individuals who do that. This is not a partisan issue. Your condition, Turner, is not Democrat, Independent, or Republican. Your issue is a personal issue. And I think that we in Congress have to each be able to recognize how important that is. One of the areas that we have addressed is on step therapy. And I think you mentioned that as I was coming into the back of this conference room, because I talk about one of the last cases that I took care of when I was leaving. It was a patient who had psoriasis and had psoriatic arthritis to the point where he was no longer able to work. It was incapacitating for him to be able to do that. And he needed one of the new advanced biologics to be able to treat his psoriasis. And he had shuffled from physician to physician to physician, had traveled from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia to Johns Hopkins and Baltimore and gone all over. And he came back and we came up with a plan of therapy, reviewing what he had done. And the insurance company came back and said, we recommend that he have 6 months of methotrexate, which he had had twice before in the last 5 years. And so we had to advocate for him to be able to get the immunologic, which allowed him to be functioning again, to return to work, and for his psoriasis to go into remission. It took 10 months. I was in Washington when he finally got that approval to be able to occur. That is unacceptable. In America, where we have these great advancements, we have to be able to have the authorization reform that is so necessary so patients can receive that. You talked about having to wait, Turner, to receive the medicines that were so important. That wasn't lost on me. I heard your message, and I will take that to my colleagues here in Washington. I will let people know. And so as you go to different offices today, and I encourage you to do this because I did this. I came to Washington as a practicing physician, and I would advocate for skin conditions for those that I was treating. When you sit down, you're not always going to meet. It's busy here. I just came from a committee hearing. The representative or the senator might be in a hearing. You might not get to talk to them. You might get to talk to one of their staffers. Leave a note. Leave a card. Let them know how important it is that you hear from them. Put your cell phone number on the back of that. Let them know that you vote. Let them know that the patients you represent vote. Let them know how important these issues are for you. This is an opportunity to have your voice heard. And you've carved out time, traveled here, expensive city to be visiting. You've carved out time out of your own schedules to do that. Make sure you know whoever you're meeting with, how important it is. And you're going to meet with people that are younger than my kids. You're going to meet with these young, shiny faces that are going to represent whether it's a senator or the member of Congress. Those are the brains and those are the actions. Those are the individuals who craft the legislation that comes forward. So don't feel like you're being shortchanged by meeting these bright young men and women. In my office, I rely on these bright young individuals to help us to advance the legislation. Let your voices be heard because it is so important that you have taken time to be here. It's so important that your message is not lost in the halls of Congress. I thank you for allowing me to present myself to you. And most important, I thank you for being here, telling your stories, and making sure that we in Congress hear how important access to care and how important innovation is to each and every one of you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
We'll get one with Turner and then one, we had your slide up earlier. So.
Dad, get in here.
Nice.
Wasn't Turner's speech the best?
Yes. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right, next up is going to be Stephen Taylor. We're going to hear another patient speak about living with vitiligo. So Stephen is a dedicated advocate for the vitiligo community, having lived with the condition for over 40 years. Retired from General Motors after a 35-year career as a reliability engineer, Stephen now focuses his efforts on supporting others with vitiligo. He serves as the General Secretary of the Vitiligo International Patient Organization Committee, BIPOC, is a lifetime member of the V Strong Vitiligo Support Community in Detroit, and sits on the board of directors for the Global Vitiligo Foundation, GVF. His extensive personal experience with vitiligo, including trying numerous treatments, fuels his passion for helping others navigate the challenges of this condition. So without further ado, come on up, Stephen.
It was the summer of 1982, my last semester in college prior to graduation, when I was diagnosed with vitiligo. Now, vitiligo is an autoimmune disease where my immune system is attacking my healthy melanocytes that produces melanin that gives us our skin color and protection from the sun. I broke out with white lesions on my elbow. Now, keep in mind, back then, we did not have a vitiligo community, social media, AI, not even Dr. Google. I had to rely on the opinion on two dermatologists that pretty much said, Mr. Taylor, you have vitiligo, there's no cure, you're going to lose your color, and oh, by the way, have a nice day. I was shocked and alone, so much so that I was going to leave college. I was going to discontinue serving in the United States Marine Corps Reserves, which I've already served 4 years, and I was not going to take that job opportunity with General Motors upon graduation. Rather, I was going to move back to Boston, live with my mother in a agoraphobic type lifestyle. Good news, that did not happen. Now, moving forward in time, I found a dermatologist that knew the subject of vitiligo and treatments, and I was excited. I used my problem-solving skill sets and stacked every conceivable treatments that were available during that time for the next several years. I did it all. Phototherapy, UVA PUVA, followed by narrowband UVB, climate therapy, immunotherapy treatments like Elidel, Protopic, VTOP, tacrolimus, off-label treatments like Embryo, to name a few, in addition to diet and exercise and a plethora of vitamin supplements, all to no avail. So I pretty much discontinued treatments and spent the next several years staring in the mirror, watching the rest of my pigmentation disappear, and saying to myself, subconsciously speaking, I am ugly and I failed. I failed to do a deep dive study of this disease relative to the roles that resident memory T cells played in my treatment process. I failed to do a risk-benefit analysis to determine which treatments were warranted. I failed to properly protect myself from the sun, resulting in many episodes of severe sun burns. And finally, I failed to understand the psychological impact this disease was having on my mental wellness and my family. Now, imagine saying that to yourself every time you look into the mirror. That's called inculcation, repetition for emphasis, and kick in the Pygmalion effect. I became what I believed. In other words, I became my own worst enemy. Now that I am over 99% void of color, do you know what I see now when I look into the mirror? Somebody I do not recognize. In closing, my journey with vitiligo has been very challenging. Nevertheless, I have dedicated my time, energy, resource, and skill set in becoming a patient leader and international patient advocate in the following organizations. I am a longstanding patient leader in my home support group, Be Strong Vitiligo Support Community, located in Detroit, Michigan. I am also a member of the Global Vitiligo Foundation, the GVF, which is made up of professional healthcare providers who are subject matter experts in vitiligo. And finally, I belong to an international organization called VPOC, the Vitiligo International Patient Organization Committee. It's made up of vitiligans like myself from around the world with over 30 registered countries. Thank you.
That was incredible and powerful, Stephen. Thank you for sharing. We're a little bit over on our time, so just letting some of our advocates know, if you need to pick up and go to your meeting, that's okay, but we don't want to, squash anybody's presentations, because what we have to share today is really important. So we're going to continue on. This is me. I get to share my story because, like I mentioned earlier, Joelle was ill and was not able to come, but I love sharing my story. It's what got me involved in advocacy in the first place, because I always lived with eczema. I was diagnosed as a little girl with irregular spots, in the crooks of the arms, behind the knees. Do you know right now, nearly 20% of our kids are being diagnosed with eczema? This is a big deal. Most people know someone with this condition. So I'm one of the 31 million Americans diagnosed with this skin disease as is now. Anyway, I grew up like most kids. I tried to hide it when I got a little older in the preteen. Then it started getting a little bit, more challenging because what you care about as a small kid, a preteen, a teenager, is how you look. And like Turner mentioned, when people feel like you're contagious, their kids are very vocal. They shame you publicly. That's pretty hard when you're that age. And so at that time, I had been managing just with moisturizers and some of the basics. My mom was holistic, and so she was all about diet and lecithin and cod liver oil and that kind of stuff. But I still was dealing with my skin. And so we went to a doctor, got on topical steroids, which is the first line treatment for eczema, very cheap, very easy to access. And I managed my skin like that for a very long time, for 26 years. And the thing is, with my condition, I needed higher and higher potencies over time to maintain my clear skin. And in the meantime, I was developing a lot of allergies, food sensitivities, things like that. My health was just kind of going down the tubes, even though I ate well, I exercised, it just didn't make sense. I was asking questions, talking to my doctors, what's up, not getting a lot of answers. And so I started looking into it myself. And it wasn't until I went to Costco to pick up my pharmacy. I was on the highest potency steroid at the time, where I was kind of chasing a rash around my body. And it was a new tech on duty, and she stopped me. She's like, wow, this is really high potency. And I'm like, yes. And she said, well, you need to be careful where you're using it. I know. It's not like I use this like moisturizer. It's like a little bit here and a little there. And she's just like, well, how long have you been using it? And I had to think for a minute, but I told her, probably 10 of the last 26 years. And just for a split second, her eyeballs like popped open. And I got sick to my stomach thinking, what do you know that I don't know? I've been told that these are perfectly safe to use forever. My GP actually told me, you have a skin condition that is hereditary. You can't figure it out. You're going to drive yourself crazy. You need steroids the rest of your life. That was it. And like I said earlier, you kind of feel like, all right, well, this is my lot. This is what I'm just going to have to make the best of it. And you kind of fade off in the distance because that's all we had at the time. This is 2012. Well, I after that look I got from the pharmacy tech, I decided I'm going to look into it myself. I found studies that did show a correlation between long-term steroid use and heightened allergic response, not just because the skin is thinning, but because it's actually upregulating that immune response. And so I thought, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. And then I found another study saying if you use better barrier creams, you can lessen use of steroids. So I thought, here's my new path in life. And I'm going to start a skincare line and make products for eczema patients. And so I started experimenting on myself with shea butter and mango and coconut oil, jojoba. And when I'd have a reaction, I just thought, oh, well, I probably am allergic to chamomile or whatever that I was trying. Well, I was unknowingly weaning myself off a drug that I had become physically dependent on. And when I stopped completely, within 2 days, my body just started blowing up. I was on the couch in literally 2 days after I stopped completely, and I was having this burning in my skin and this bone deep itch, not like an itchy eczema scratch. It was like I want to claw my skin off itch. And I was laying in the couch up all night thinking, what the heck is going on? The only thing I've changed is completely stopping using my topical steroids on my hands, which were the worst place for me. And I was Googling around, like we were talking about earlier, Dr. Google, because who else are you going to look, in 4 in the morning? And I came across an organization called ITSAN that I know I'm the president of, International Topical Steroid Awareness Network. They had just come online 3 months prior in 2012. And I started reading the list of, if you know that you've become dependent on this drug, check, 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 all the way down. And then what does it look like when you get off of this drug in recovery? And I was like, oh, I won't say the word. But at the same time, I was thinking, it's such a sense of relief. This is me. It's like everything clicked into place, like my worsening health problems, all of that. So at 7 in the morning, I remember I was still awake. I went up, sat on the edge of my husband in my bed and said, okay, I think we're in for it for a while. At the time, it was like, just stop steroids, get through it, and you will eventually recover. Just use, comfort measures. And so he was on board. I just thought it was going to be 3 months of hell, but I'll get through this and probably be healthier than I was before. Well, this is me, probably about a year in. I ended up becoming bedridden for a year and a half. I could not be out of bed more than 15 minutes at a time. I was red, burning skin head to toe. Can you see that picture in the middle? That is my arm. My skin did some really funky stuff. I lost about 40 pounds. I had what they call elephant skin on the elbow. I lost my hair. I got a cataract. I basically lived between my bed and my bathtub every 2 hours for a year and a half straight. through night and day. Insomnia is a big part of this. So I was basically in the prison of my own body, in the prison of my bedroom. I remember one time I went out, I didn't get out of my room very much because I was suffering so much. It literally felt like someone poured boiling water over my body. So any movement would make me wince. I could not wear clothes for a long time. I had to lay naked on towels on my bed and I was oozing so badly. I had hundreds of fissures all over my body. It was terrible. A lot of times with this patients going through it, they live hour to hour, not day to day or week to week. And there's no end in sight. And a lot of medical professionals say this isn't happening and you're crazy and this is just severe untreated eczema. So you're not getting support from the people that you really need. You need medical oversight. Well, I'm going back to the part where when I would come out of my room, I remember one time I went downstairs and into the garage and I saw a new pair of shoes and I was thinking, whose shoes are those? And then this wave of grief hit me and I thought, those are my son's shoes. He said, my 4-year-old son is actually grown while I've been in my bed. And I'm missing all of this time with my kids. So I had two boys at that time, which was very difficult. I basically had to let go and let be what was going to be and just try to get through because I realized if I'm going to be a wife and a mom and a friend and a sister and a daughter, I have to get through this and push through. So some of the things that I wish I would have known, and I'm just saying this because I know in skin a lot of us use topical steroids. There's not a lot being talked about. There's just so many nuances around this problem. It is a big problem. We've talked with the FDA. We've done a small pilot study at NIH. We're talking to the AAD and others about how do we address this because hundreds of millions of people use this drug. This is a problem, right? But we have to talk about it. We have to address it. We have to treat better. We know better now. We have new treatments. Anyway, some of the things I wish I would have known. When I was looking into cosmetic making, 60 to 100% of what you put on your body goes into your bloodstream. Not a lot of people are thinking about that. I remember for many years I thought, oh, it's my skin is my enemy. But then it's like my mind shifts changed. I thought, what am I putting on my body? All I care about is does it make my hair shiny or my skin, soft, or does it smell good? I wasn't looking into the ingredients, and there's a lot of stuff out there that shouldn't be out there. But we feel like because it's on a shelf, it's safe. We need more regulation in this. And then topical steroid potency, where you use it, how long you use it, it really matters. And side effects are cumulative. So if you've been using it like I did for 26 years, the longer you use, the higher your risk, the higher potency you use. Most patients don't even know if it's a steroid because it's a long, weird name that doesn't say steroid. It's just, I have people calling me all the time. What is this? Is this a steroid? Should I be using it? I've been using it a long time. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Steroids were approved for short-term non-continuous use lots and lots of years ago, 60 to 70 years ago, after 4-week trials. So nowadays I've talked to dermatologists and they say, I don't think these drugs would be approved now. With the safety and efficacy type of studies that we do, they just wouldn't. But most of us as patients don't know that. We feel like they're perfectly safe. I had a friend who was prescribed 59 refills in 1 year of a bottle of steroids to use on her face because she had a makeup reaction. And she is now 9 years into that red skin because of that. So the last thing that I want to talk about in my story, and this is kind of a graphic picture. I didn't take the worst because you're all eating lunch, and I'm sparing you of that. It took me 3 months to actually look at these pictures after I was exposed to something called eczema herpeticum. So another thing we think about is when you use steroids a long time, you're compromising the immune system in your skin. So what you might be exposed to if you go to the store, my dermatologist actually told me it could have been on a grocery cart. You had a cut in your hand, it got in your body. And then 3 days later, that was literally 3 days later, it spread full body and I almost lost my life. So this virus gets into your lungs and your brain and it can kill you. So every 3 weeks for probably a year after this, I would have an outbreak because my body just couldn't fight this virus. I'd had to be on antivirals all the time, which was really scary because I was thinking, man, if this ever stops, I'm gone. And at this point in my life, I couldn't even put a sentence together. It was so painful. So I think, what are we setting people up for with long-term steroid exposure? And antimicrobial resistance is a real thing. World Health Organization has actually stated if we don't curb this by 2050, more people will die from infection than cancer. We have to figure this stuff out. We have better options. We have better science. And I'm setting Olivia up, who's going to be talking about the importance of research. We have to keep this going. Yes, we need to look at the chronic problems. What is driving eczema? Why are all of our kids getting eczema? Why all the autoimmune conditions that are on the uprise? We have to look at that, and I love that this administration is trying to put a focus on that. We also have to look at the research of how do we get things for people right now. We have to deal with what's happening right now. So we're going to be hearing from a couple more presenters, and like I said, I don't want to say shorten your presentation because all of it is so relevant and so needed. So I want to introduce Olivia. I'll give her a little bit of a background for you. Let's move this along. Oh, first I have to see this. These are my two sons. Look at them. Aren't they amazing? Ah! It's Jackson, my oldest, and Haven, my younger one. And they're my heart and my soul. I put this slide up here because we raise awareness and advocate not only just for us, we do it for our kids. We do it for the coming generations. We need to make a world that we all want to live in, that we want our kids to live in, right? So anyway, I'm sorry about that. Olivia, you're next.
This is the best setup.
So, okay. Olivia is Senior Director of Programming at the Autoimmune Association and works as a public health advocate and program designer focused on improving outcomes for people living with autoimmune diseases. Drawing on a background in journalism and decades of experience managing federal health programs, she now leads initiatives that center patient voices in research policy and care delivery. And you guys are in for a real treat because she is a data nerd, but she's so articulate and such a firecracker, you're in for a treat. So, without further ado.
Yes. All right. Well, this is kind of awkward because I'm going backwards here. That was a great setup. That was fantastic. Do you need to know? So that was a great introduction. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. So this is my introduction I want to set up the two speakers that come after me about why research is so critical. And I want people to understand what my passion is about why it's important. I mean, if it weren't for research, there is no solutions. Okay, so a few years ago, I met a patient advocate who, like Turner, had psoriasis. He was probably in his 50s, and he had a successful career as an academic. But he told me that when he was younger, he was very shy, he was very outgoing. And over the course of his treatment, he became very shy. And he thought, in retrospect, if there had been treatment, if there had been a cure, would his life have turned out different? Oh, this is awkward doing it backwards. Okay. So I'm actually very fortunate because I have actinic keratosis, which led to early detection of carcinoma, which led to surgery before it became life-threatening. That revealed rosacea and eczema, conditions that are both managed now. But not everyone is so fortunate. I was really lucky. Most patients don't benefit from timely diagnosis or effective treatment because the research isn't there when it isn't. So in 2013, skin diseases affected 85 million Americans, cost over 75 billion. Well, today that's 100 billion in today's dollars. Now we know that there were not that many biologics then, so we know that that dollar value is even greater today. And that's not including the 15 billion in indirect costs. And that burden is growing. Investing in research means early detection, better outcomes, and lower long-term costs. It's not just a health issue, it's an economic one. And I want to point this out. I want to really put this dollar value in your head. Every $1 invested in NIH research returns $2.56 in economic activity. It's a real number I can support. But let's take a look at what it takes to turn science into solutions. There's a common misconception that all research is intramural, meaning that it happens on the NIH campus in Rockville. That's not true. Only 20% happens on that campus, but 80% is extramural, conducted at universities and hospitals and community clinics around the US. Now, the NIH is the gold standard, and that's internationally the crown jewel of research, supporting over 2,500 research institutions in virtually every congressional district in the US. This vast reach ensures that discovery isn't limited to just a few elite labs. It's a national effort. But science doesn't happen in silos. A discovery in one field can unlock progress in another one, often in ways we don't expect. You've probably all seen TV ads for Dupixent, which is a treatment for eczema. That was made possible because of basic research in T-cell signaling and cytokine pathways, which was originally explored in immunology and transplant science. Techniques developed for targeting cancer cells, especially monoclonal antibodies and immune checkpoint inhibitors, laid the groundwork for biologic therapies now used to treat psoriasis. The breakthroughs we see today came too late for that advocate that I spoke about earlier, but they carry the power to change the next child's story, like a friend did. How does this work? Well, science starts with an idea, and then the real work begins. I think I got my slides mixed up here. There we go. So a tough road to funding. Then comes peer review. Every proposal goes through rigorous assessment by a panel of experts who evaluate the effort based on these criteria, the ones that are listed. It's very competitive, and it's designed to make sure public funds are well spent. In fact, really only 1 in 5 proposals gets funded, but sometimes that drops to 1 in 10. For the projects that do receive funding, the scientific process begins. Research advances through the defined stages. Now, one of the really distinctive things about the NIH, and this is so important, is the ability to fund long-term longitudinal research, work that would be difficult, if not impossible, to sustain through private investment alone. Unlike industry models that demand short-term returns, this science is built around long-term benefits. We have the ability to establish and maintain registries that go for decades. You can't do that in a private industry. It's not cost effective. There's no benefit to it. There's no ROI. And scientific project process depends not just on discovery, but on the people. It takes 15 to 20 years to develop an independent researcher. And that path requires sustained support. They don't just come up overnight. Most choose it not for personal gain, but out of a deep belief in science's power to improve lives. That purpose is what drives the entire enterprise. Dr. Bree told us that her daughter, who spent the day dissecting brains, worked at night at Michael's because that's how she had to pay the bills when she lived here in DC. And once the discoveries are made, they don't stay locked in the lab. They become public knowledge. That's when science becomes exponential. Findings are shared with researchers around the world. Each insight has the potential to spark another. And the ripple effect accentuates innovation. And when science moves from bench to bedside, it can transform lives with new treatments, therapies, diagnostics, and new standards of care that we can all take advantage of. Because this is public research, it comes with public responsibility. NIH grantees must share results openly, follow rigorous ethical standards, and ensure their findings benefit the public good. That's science with accountability, and it is non-negotiable. And it's important to note that it's not just scientists shaping the future of research. It's all of us. It's all of us in this room, everyone. Patients, caregivers, advocacy organizations. Public health is personal, and the science we fund should reflect the needs and the voices of the people. It's meant to serve. And I want to close with a quick story. Every year, the Autoimmune Association hosts advocacy fly-in where patients travel from across the country to share their stories. Last year, we interviewed a young woman who had myositis, whose life had completely changed between the ages of 21 and 25. She had been very vibrant and active and essentially was bedridden. And she was nearly hopeless. And she told us in the course of our interview that she had even considered taking her own life. But then she met a doctor at the NIH, someone who listened to her, who believed in her, and pieced together the mystery of her illness, and she enrolled in a clinical trial. Thanks to that care and the research behind it, her life has been completely transformed. She has a career, she has family, she has hope. She called that doctor her angel. I went up to her after our session and asked if she would mind sharing with me the name of her physician, and she did. I happen to know this doctor. I shared that story with my friend, and we both had a very teary moment. Research changes lives, and that's what the NIH makes possible. Thank you.
right, next up is Dr. Amy Payne. Dr. Payne is the Herbert and Florence Irving Professor and Chair of Dermatology at Columbia University. Her research laboratory focuses on mechanisms and treatments of